What's going on, everybody? Haunted Beard here. Welcome back to my channel. Today, I want to talk to you about a movie called Possession. And Shudder just released this on their platform last month. And this is a movie that came out in 1981 and has been kind of really difficult to watch and to get your hands on. It's been unavailable on streaming for many, many years. And it's a movie that I've been aware of. I've known about its reputation that has been on kind of like a to-watch list, but I've never been able to see it until now. And man, I am so glad that Shudder dropped this thing on their platform because this movie is absolute madness. And I am just going to say right from the get-go, if you like horror movies, you got to check this thing out. Let's get into it. So as I said, this came out in 1981. It was directed by a Polish director named Andrzej Zulawski. I'm probably mispronouncing his name, but this is actually his only English language film. And it stars Sam Neill, you probably know from movies like Jurassic Park, and Isabelle Adjani. And it tells the story of them two characters. They are a married couple. And immediately at the start of the movie, the wife asks her husband for a divorce. And it's not long after that she starts exhibiting increasingly disturbing behavior. Starts off with suspicions of infidelity, but those soon give way to something much more sinister. I'll just say from the get-go, this is an unforgettable movie watching experience. And I'm so glad it's available on streaming now because, man, people need to watch this thing. And I think once more and more people get eyes on this thing and check it out, I think this thing deserves to be and will likely be mentioned more amongst some of those most well-known and classic and best horror movies from the 1980s. So Possession starts off as more or less like this sort of domestic relationship drama as these two people, their marriage is obviously falling apart. And the first thing I have to mention here is just the performances. The performances in this movie are just phenomenal. And the performances are just filled with just this raw, primal, emotional energy. And it's intense. And there's just very extreme emotions, very intense, just scenes of rage and hatred and vitriol being spewed back and forth to one another. And one of the things, too, that I think this film does well is with the camera work, as it's got just kind of this sort of frantic energy to it, as the camera's just sort of constantly moving. And it feels, it is like this handheld, but it's not too like choppy or shaky. It kind of has this smooth quality to it as well. But man, it really just kind of captures the energy and the drama of the scenes just really, really well. I love the way that the film was shot. And man, I can't really say enough good things about the performances. They're just unbelievable. They're just, man, they're so intense. They're so over the top. They're so extreme. And just the range of emotions, the range of feelings that the two main actors are required to deliver in this are just really pretty incredible. And many of those scenes with Sam Neill and Isabelle Adjani going back and forth, kind of yelling and screaming at each other and kind of moving about the house and just having these intense arguments are filmed with these sort of longer extended takes, and they don't like feel scripted. They just feel, again, very raw, very authentic, very real. Like we just kind of happen to be sort of this fly on the wall capturing these moments, witnessing these just extremely over the top and intense moments between these two couples who are just having an absolute breakdown of their marriage. And man, it is a lot to handle in some scenes, but man, it is extremely powerful and effective. Other things too that I thought the film did really great with was just sort of the overall like color palette and design of the film, as it has just this very kind of muted color palette, very sort of gray, kind of this white, even these sort of like darker grayish blues to it. There's no warmth here. It's a very kind of cold feeling movie, and the colors in the movie definitely express that. Also too, just the production design of their home or their apartment it almost feels like they're in this sort of psychiatric hospital. It has this very cold doctor's office sterile feel to it, as the walls are like totally painted white and like everything is just all on the floor in like this complete mess, but like there's nothing on the walls. They're just this like plain white. And so like there's no decoration, there's no like personal touch. And so it's just another aspect that really contributes to the overall feeling and atmosphere of this thing that I thought was just really pretty great. So what ends up happening is the wife, her name is Anna, she ends up confessing to Mark, the husband, that she's been having an affair. He was gone on like this business trip for a while and things like that. Anyways, she ends up confessing that to him. And that's kind of when all hell breaks loose. And so Mark starts kind of freaking out as he's trying to do anything he can to kind of salvage the relationship. They also have a young son together. So, he's worried about his son. And Anna just keeps kind of taking off and leaving for days at a time. And then she'll show back up and then just leave again. And so it's just like this completely, the foundation of their sort of marriage is just completely crumbling and collapsing. And it's not too long into the movie where you start realizing that Anna is becoming unhinged, that it's not just her wanting to leave her husband. There's something more sinister going on here. And so part of what I think the movie is exploring is just this fear of watching a loved one completely lose themselves and lose their kind of identity and who they are. And they're just becoming this completely different person as we watch Anna just really become unglued and unhinged and kind of just totally have this kind of psychotic meltdown. And man, just watching that kind of character arc, that sort of gradual process it's just incredible. I don't know what other word to use this movie is madness. This movie is insane. And that's largely just a testament to Isabelle Adjani's performance. Particularly, and this is kind of a more sort of well-known scene, it's called the subway scene, where you see her just completely lose her mind. And man, it is a scene unlike anything I've probably ever seen before, as she just totally has a meltdown in this subway station. And it kind of just left me speechless. I was just kind of sitting there watching it. I didn't really know what to say or what to think. I was just kind of transfixed and mesmerized on the screen watching this. And man, this movie has some moments that, like I said, are really unforgettable. So by and large, Possession is a character-driven film, more so than a plot-driven film, as it largely invests its time into these characters and their relationship and kind of the experience and the overall arc of what they go through. But there is still a bit of a plot element as well, which I appreciated, as what ends up happening about half an hour or so into the movie, Mark, the husband, goes to a private investigator to kind of have his wife tailed because he really wants to figure out what exactly is she doing? Why does she keep disappearing? Where is she going and what's happening? And so you get kind of elements of that to where there's a bit of a kind of mysterious sort of intriguing element because we as the audience are curious too, like what exactly is happening? What is going on with this lady? Why is she acting this way and doing these things? And so that's kind of where you get a bit of a plot starting to develop in this movie. At about 50 minutes into the movie, a detective goes and follows Anna to this apartment, and he goes in there pretending to be like the building landlord to check on something. And this is where we kind of get our first little bit of a reveal as we discover that there is some type of creature that is in this apartment that is clearly having some sort of effect, some sort of possessive effect on Anna. And then about 10 to 15 minutes later in the movie, the private investigator that Mark sought out goes to track down this detective. He's the one who sent him out to follow Anna. He hasn't reported back, so he follows up. And man, we get just an incredible scene as he goes into this apartment to investigate what happened to this guy. And man, this scene is just shocking and intense as he sees this creature now on this bed. And one of the things that this movie does really well is it uses very little music. And I really like, in this scene particularly, it refrains from using any sort of music to kind of over dramatize or kind of artificially heighten kind of the emotion and intensity of the moment as we just sort of see his pure look of shock. And he's totally speechless as he's looking at this creature on the bed and he has no idea what in the world is going on. And this movie just has a handful of, I think, just really well directed and executed scenes. that, as I've said multiple times already, makes for a really memorable and just totally unforgettable experience. There's a scene later on where this character named Heinrich, who is the man that Anna was having an affair with, ends up going to that apartment. He ends up getting stabbed. Then he meets Mark at this bar down the street, and then Mark ends up killing him in the bathroom. And again, there's just this kind of raw, just kind of dirty, grungy feeling to all this. And it just, the blood in this movie too is just like super saturated red that really gives it this, pop of color. Because as I've said, the movie is this kind of just this muted gray, darkish, bluish gray type color to it. And then you get these just pops of red that really just like kind of grab your eyes. And then we reach the climax of the movie, just about the last 15 minutes or so. And the climax of this movie is just insane, as if I haven't used that word enough already. It's just wild. And it gets to this level to where it gets more kind of abstract and enigmatic than I was really expecting. And so that was really kind of, as I said, unexpected and really kind of intriguing. And this movie kind of has some interesting sort of themes and things going on underneath just the surface. There's a particular sequence, I'd say a little bit before the climax, where Anna is directly addressing the camera, like she breaks the fourth wall. And she's talking about this idea of sister faith and sister chance, and how one of them was killed and one of them still lives. And she makes this interesting statement like, I'm the maker of my own evil. And it kind of introduces just these sort of interesting themes. And then with everything that happens at the climax, this is definitely a movie that I definitely by no means have like totally got it all figured out. There's a lot kind of going on here that's really just kind of sort of surreal and like I said, abstract, but man, it just, again, really makes for just such a memorable watch. There's another really shocking scene in sort of the climactic, sequence of this movie where Mark finds this creature making love to his wife in just one of the most shocking and just disturbing and gross scenes that I've seen in at least a little while. And there's also some themes too of like doppelgangers, as what ends up happening is the creature ends up like morphing into a version of Mark. And there's also like this doppelganger version of Anna, which is their son's school teacher, who Mark has kind of started a bit of this relationship with throughout the movie. And so those are just kind of these interesting creative choices that really make me as a viewer go, like there's something deeper, there's something more going on here. And so this is a movie that I think there's no way you can kind of really get to the bottom of it and get to the depth of it just with one view. But man, this was just a special experience. And man, I highly encourage anybody to check this out, especially, obviously, if you're a horror movie fan, especially if you love 80s horrors. I really think that this thing deserves to be mentioned amongst some of the best of that decade. So those are just some of my thoughts on Possession. I cannot really recommend this thing enough. It is an experience, guys. Like, it is something special. And don't let the fact that it's over 40 years old now hinder you from watching it. This thing is, I would say, just as effective today as it was back when it originally came out. I think it's pretty phenomenal. So I really have no idea what to grade this thing. Obviously, I think it's pretty great. I'm going to go like an 8.5 out of 10. And the only reason why I won't go higher is because I still think that there's some more stuff for me to explore and kind of process and understand about this movie. But I really think it even has potential of going higher into a 9, maybe even a 10. I don't know. But this is just a special one. It truly kind of left me speechless. I was kind of just staring at the screen for a few minutes after it ended, just like trying to take it all in. And like I've said already a few times, it is unforgettable. This movie is just crazy and intense and disturbing. And it's just absolute madness, and you got to go check it out. So, yeah, go check it out. So anyways, those are my thoughts. That's all I got for you today. If you've seen Possession, please let me know down in the comments what your thoughts are. I would love to hear from you. More people need to check this movie out, man. It is pretty great. So thanks for watching. If you like content and videos like this, please consider hitting that subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it. This is what I do on The Haunted Beard. It's all horror and thriller movie content coming at you. So hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time on The Haunted Beard.